Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. How are you this morning, Tyler?
Good morning, Dean. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about Social Security. Social Security is a very hot topic with those people looking to retire and current retirees because it makes up a good portion of your retirement income. As a matter of fact, when Social Security was first launched back in 1935, a lot of people thought Social Security would be the sole source of income in retirement. However, the administration back then, President Franklin Roosevelt claimed that Social Security should be a complement to your investments and your other retirement income. And we've been telling clients that for a long time, that Social Security is really one leg of the three-legged stool. And what we mean by the three-legged stool, that metaphor has been around for a long time. Financial planners have used it. And that is the three legs of your financial stool consists of Social Security, pension, and your personal investments. And when it comes to your personal investments, that can be 401ks or just cash in the bank. But if we look at the three-legged stool right now, those legs are somewhat wobbly. And what we mean by that is Social Security isn't necessarily on good financial footing. Pensions that used to be around and more prevalent, we're seeing fewer of them. With the creation of 401ks and 403bs that employers give to employees, we see fewer and fewer pensions around now. And then lastly, you're looking at your own personal investments and money. And really that comes down to, unfortunately, a lot of people who might work for an employer that didn't put a lot of money aside for them, or they're self-employed, or they just chose not to participate, didn't put a lot of money away. So again, Social Security is one of the three legs on the financial stool, very important, but it should not be the sole source of your income. While you're working, do not think that you can live exclusively off of Social Security. And if you do, many times it's hard to make ends meet. But before we get in and start talking about some of the myths in Social Security, understand that Tyler and I do not work for the Social Security Administration. Okay, we are financial advisors. However, we talk about Social Security an awful lot because, again, it is a very major part of the retirement income process. So, Tyler, anything else about the basics of Social Security when it first started?
Yep, just that, like you said, Dean, back in 1935 was when President Roosevelt first signed Social Security into law, and taxes were collected for the first time in January 1937 for Social Security taxes, and the first payments were made that month, and then regular monthly benefits started in January 1940. So Social Security, as everyone knows, has been around for quite some time, but today we're really going to get into it here and break down a lot of the myths that people believe, which really aren't true for Social Security, and really just dive into things with that.
Okay, let's look at the first myth, and that is Social Security is running out of money. Well, first of all, it could. I mean, Social Security Administration says itself that if things do not change, that they believe they have enough money to fully fund until the year 2034. And at that time, they would only have 75 to 79 cents on every $1 to pay out in benefits. So understand that if Social Security continues in the fashion it is in right now, it might run out of some money. However, there are a number of things that have happened in the past that help fund Social Security. First of all, understand that the more people that are working today, for instance, unemployment rates are down. There are more people working in 2018 than in the last 3 or 4 years. That's very important. If I'm drawing Social Security or if I'm getting close to retirement, that's something that makes me feel a lot better because there are more people now putting money into the Social Security Trust Fund. So let's look at that. Secondly, let's look at how Social Security addressed some of these shortfalls in the past. 1935 Social Security was started, but in the 1980s, it took that long to really address some of the shortfalls. Part of the reason is we had fewer and fewer people putting money into the trust fund for Social Security, and we have more and more retirees. And at that particular time in the 1980s, a decision was made by our government to increase the full retirement age from 65 to 66 and also make approximately 50% of the benefit taxable based on your income. So what that did do is it increased the trust fund. Social Security was on better footing financially. About 10 years after that, in the 1990s, a second major change happened, and that was moving the full retirement age from 66 to 67 and making possibly up to 85% of your benefit taxable. So those things were made, in the past. They helped the Social Security Trust Fund. It helped fund it longer. So if we look at possible changes going forward, I think it's only obvious that we look at the full retirement age might increase again. Could it increase from 67 to 68, 69, or 70? Yes, that's possible. Could it be that 100% of your Social Security benefit could be taxable? Yes, that is also possible. Both of those things will help money being paid out by the trust fund last significantly longer. Tyler, anything else on that?
Yeah, Dean, some good points there. One thing I just wanted to add in was that Social Security Trust Fund has been running in a surplus every year since 1982, and however, that's likely to stop within the next couple years here. So at that time, like you said, Dean, there will be things that are going to be done, and again, in 2034 is when a lot of government estimates come in that the Social Security funds are likely to be depleted. That's if no changes are made. Again, as you said, Dean, we foresee there being changes made. For example, what you mentioned, where 100% of people's Social Security benefit could be taxable. In addition to that, the full retirement age might be pushed back, maybe even the earliest age that you can file, which right now, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show, but right now it's 62. Maybe they push that back to 64. So there's many different options that could happen that we probably will see happen in the coming decade or so, but again, that's yet to be seen.
Okay. Another myth we hear is people think that the money that they put into Social Security that comes out of their paycheck is actually put into their own account, like an IRA. It's under their own name. That's not true at all. What happens is it's put into basically a slush fund. The money that's withdrawn from your payroll goes into a fund, and those people who are currently retired are getting that benefit. So you don't have your own account when you set up Social Security. And again, we talk about the ratio of things that are changing. Remember, the money you put in there right now is helping those people who are currently retired. In 1960, that ratio was about 5 workers to every 1 retiree, or basically about 73 million workers to 14 million retirees. Well, we're in 2018, and the largest population of retirees in the United States is upon us, the baby boomers. Okay, so we're really stressing that ratio a lot. We have fewer workers putting money into the fund, and we have more retirees. So again, understand the money that comes out of your paycheck is not exclusively for your own account in Social Security. It's used to help fund and pay those people who are currently retired.
Yeah, Dean, and ultimately, if you're working right now, then your Social Security contributions, the taxes coming from your paycheck for Social Security, that money is directly going to pay for benefits of those who are retired right now, and vice versa. If you're retired, you're earning money from people who are working, not back when you worked at that time. So a lot of people say, we hear it quite often. They say, if they're retired, they say, no, I'm not going to worry about the economy because I got my Social Security check, I'm fine. Well, ultimately, your Social Security is dependent on those who are working, so you should hope for a strong economy regardless whether you're working or retired, just because it comes full circle, so to speak. And as you mentioned, Dean, the ratio was 5 to 1, 5 workers to 1 beneficiary receiving Social Security back in 1960. By 2035, it's expected to hit 2.1 as opposed to 5.1. So again, that's really stressing the system. where it's by the early to mid 2030s, something is going to have to be done to try and prolong it. And again, we mentioned that, but again, that right there just shows that there's more and more people retired as opposed to those working, and something's going to need to change coming up here in the next couple decades.
Okay. The next myth we hear is Social Security benefits you receive are based on your last 10 years of income. I think that one comes up a lot. I think people are getting that mixed up with certain pensions that are out there, because Social Security is not based on your last 10 years of income, though I do know a number of pensions that are set up on your last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years of income. So you will see people who are looking to retire typically work more in those last handful of years because they're trying to get as much as they possibly can, because that determines the basis and the formula for their pension and their payout for the rest of their life once they retire. But when it comes to Social Security, it's really based on your 35 highest earning working years, and they're adjusted for inflation. So what that means, if you have worked 35 years in your life, you will accumulate your full benefit and qualify for Social Security. If you work 40 years, what happens is the 5 lowest paying years will be kicked out of the formula. So it's always going to use the 35 highest earning years. I will have some clients who say, they worry because they stayed at home and raised the kids, or they were in a sales position where they didn't make really good sales each and every year, or unfortunately were between jobs. Provided you work over 35 years, those will be pushed out of the formula and won't be used against you in determining your Social Security benefit.
Yeah, Dean, and on the other hand, if you have someone who works 30 years, those last 5 years of working are actually put in there as zeros. So if you can work even part-time, that will help your benefit, because anything under 35 is factored into the equation as a zero. So keep that in mind. If you're coming up on retirement thinking about working an extra year or two, and here you might have 32 years of earnings, well, even 1 year of part-time work will help, because that'll bump out a zero, therefore increasing your estimated benefit. The other thing too, so again, the myth is that Social Security benefits you receive are based on your last 10 years of income. They're not. It's based on your top 35 highest earning working years adjusted for inflation. But the other thing that people get mixed up is that typically you need to achieve at least 10 years of work to get your full 40 work credits. And I think that is another scenario where the 10 years kind of comes into play, and people aren't quite sure exactly how much you need in order to qualify for Social Security. So again, your benefits are based on the top 35 highest years of earnings. And in addition to that, if you have more than that, then your bottom ones get kicked out, and you have less than that, those show up as zero. So keep that in mind, but ultimately it's your 35 highest earning working years.
Okay, good points, Ty. Next thing is we're going to look at the myth. Social Security is designed to replace most of your pre-retirement income. No, not at all. According to the Social Security Administration, they say that the average person will have Social Security take care of about 40% of their pre-retirement income, so their earnings. So if you're willing to live off of 40% of what you made in salary once you retire, that would basically be your Social Security benefit. That's why it's imperative that we talk to people about getting started with investments. Get started early, get started often. However, if you didn't start early, it's never too late. Absolutely never too late to get started. So when it comes to your Social Security, again, going back to that metaphor of the three-legged stool, Social Security should be a complement to the rest of your money. Now, the Social Security Administration also said in a survey done coast to coast that the average Social Security benefit is $1,364 a month, or about $16,368 a year. So, I mean, most people aren't going to be able to live off of $16,368 a year, which is your Social Security average benefit on those people surveyed. Tyler, what about people who they ask about, is there a maximum amount that can be pooled for their Social Security benefit when they retire?
Yeah, Dean. The maximum monthly Social Security benefit for those retiring at their full retirement age was recently $2,687. So that's about $32,000 for the whole year, which again is about double the average of $16,000 to $17,000. But still, you have the average of $16,000 to $17,000, and then you have on the higher end $32,000. For most people, we see if you fall in between those numbers, or even the average at 16 to 17,000, that isn't nearly enough to sustain your retirement and to try or to want to live how you want in retirement, spend money, take trips, different things like that. After working all those years, you don't want to be crunching your budget in retirement. So again, that's why Social Security, it's not meant to design, or it's not designed or meant to replace your pre-retirement income. It's supposed to simply supplement that. And that's why we highly encourage our clients to contribute work up to that 15% of your gross income into retirement accounts. The number one thing for people right now, as we talked about earlier, pensions are gone and people aren't saving how they should be. So we really want to encourage people to save that 15% of their gross income into retirement. That will allow them to then be able to primarily rely on their retirement funds. And then Social Security is simply a nice complement to that. So again, Social Security definitely shouldn't be your primary source of income in retirement. It was never designed to do that. Some people think they'll be just fine living off of Social Security in retirement, and some people are, but most people would like extra income through the form of retirement funds that they'd saved over the years. So we highly encourage people to try and work their way up to that 15% of gross income saved into retirement accounts.
Okay, before we go on to the next Social Security myth, we are going to take a quick break.
You're listening to Dean and Tyler Listle, investment advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions located on Allied Street in Green Bay. For a complimentary review of your current investments, or if you have questions, please call them at 920-347-9888 or go to their website at srsplans.com.
Okay, back to Social Security. First of all, we want to tell all of our listeners that if you have any questions as it relates to Social Security, please give us a buzz. We'd be more than happy to take you through modeling out and optimizing your Social Security benefits. It's a big decision. Taking it early isn't always correct. Taking it late isn't always correct. It's dependent upon your own financial plan. If you carry a lot of debt in retirement and retire early, many times you'll have to take Social Security early to bridge that gap. If you decide to take Social Security late, is that going to be detrimental to your retirement if you bring down your retirement income through your investments too quickly? So we model all that out for people. Come through our door, give us your statement. We'll sit down with you and model out your Social Security. Or you could reach us by phone. We're up in Green Bay at 347-9888. We're on Allied Street. Or you can go to our website to get a hold of us too. That's srsplans.com. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about, Tyler, is for those people who have never drawn a salary, will they get Social Security benefits? This one tends to come up an awful lot. We'll have people come in to our office. They're in their maybe late 50s, early 60s. We'll talk about some retirement planning, ask them what type of income they tend to think they're going to have available. One spouse will say, well, here's my Social Security benefit when I retire. The other spouse says, well, I have nothing. And we'll ask them, what do you mean you have nothing? Well, I didn't work during my lifetime. And the first thing we'll ask them, well, how long have you been married? Well, I've been married for, any number of years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. A lot of people don't realize this. If they didn't work, they still qualify on their spouse's benefit. So they can get spousal benefits upwards of 50%. Okay? So that's important to know. Even for those people who have been divorced, if they've been married at least 10 years and did not remarry, they may qualify on their ex-spouse's Social Security benefit. So it's imperative to talk about these things. You could be leaving money on the table. For those people who have been self-employed, actually they carry the burden of a higher Social Security payment. And what I mean by that is if you are working for somebody else, your employer is paying 6.2% in taxes into the trust fund for Social Security benefits. If you're self-employed, you have to pay both for employee and employer. So you're paying 6.2% for employee and you're paying 6.2% for employer because you're self-employed. So you're forking over a whopping 12.4% in taxes. So self-employed, you're actually putting more into Social Security than if you were working for somebody else. But remember, even if you've never worked and you are married, you could get a spousal benefit provided you're married a certain period of time. So remember that also self-employed, you've been putting a lot of money into Social Security, actually double that of what most people do when they work for somebody else.
Yeah, Dean, we get this question a lot from a lot of homemakers, a lot of spouses that take off some time and stay home with the kids and do stuff around the house. They're typically concerned because they haven't paid into the Social Security system. Well, it's often good to know for those people that if they are married, then they can file for a spousal benefit, and they can collect 50% of their spouse's benefit at their full retirement age. So there's definitely options out there for those people who are self-employed and those people who are homemakers who haven't worked. You definitely can get Social Security benefits. However, it would be on your spouse's record.
Okay, good point. Okay, Tyler, let's just talk about when you can draw Social Security. A lot of people will come in and they think that they can't start drawing Social Security until they're 65 years old. And again, there's some confusion here. They might be thinking, years and years ago, 65 was the full retirement age, but it's gone up to 66 and 67 thereafter. Also, some people tend to get that 65 year mixed up with when they are supposed to file for Medicare. Okay, Medicare Part A at 65 years old, or when you can start receiving Medicare benefits. But Tyler, let's take our listeners through when we can start filing for Social Security and when would be the last year you should look at it.
Yeah, Dean, so as you said, a lot of people come in with the misconception that 65 is the age to file for Social Security, when really the earliest you can file is on your own record would be 62 years old, and the latest you can file is 70 years old. Now, you can file later if you want, but it wouldn't make any sense because your benefit doesn't grow past 70. So earliest you can file is 62, the latest you can file is 70. For many workers right now, their full retirement benefit is between ages 66 and 67. So 65, that was in the past. That used to be the full retirement age for quite some time. For those born in 1937 or earlier, that was the full retirement age. And as Dean said, now it's pushed back. And for most people coming up here, it's going to be 67 is their full retirement age. But keep in mind, if you file earlier than your full retirement age, each year that you file before then, your benefit decreases by 6%. So if you were to file, if your full retirement age is 67 and you file at 65, you're getting 12% less than what you would have gotten. And keep in mind too, every year that you delay past your full retirement age up until 70, your benefit increases by 8% per year. So you have to keep in mind, get a financial plan. You're going to want to know when to file. And oftentimes the only time that you're going to know exactly when is if you know when you're going to die. And obviously none of us really know that because there's always going to be a break-even point. So don't let anyone tell you that you must file at 70 or you must file at 62, because there's always that break-even point that you're only going to know that if you know the day that you die, because then you can go in and find the break-even point and different things like that. But really, you can start collecting it as early as 62 and as late as age 70.
Okay, good points, Tyler. Okay, the next myth that we hear is Social Security benefits are not taxable. Well, oftentimes they're not taxed, but they could be. So just be aware of that. And really, your tax implications on Social Security. And, as I said earlier, we don't work for the Social Security Administration. Tyler and I are not CPAs. We have them in our office here that look at Social Security benefits. We talk about taxes on Social Security benefits because it's very important to the retirement process. But understand, your Social Security could become taxable. Up to 50% of your benefit could be taxable, or up to 85% of your benefit could be taxable. It really depends on your income. And it's not just your Social Security income, it's other income that comes in. And this is one that really gets those retirees, it catches them off guard. What'll happen is when they have their taxes done, they're shocked that all of a sudden they have to pay significant taxes because they did something this last year, which was they withdrew money from an IRA. And even though they had taxes withheld from the IRA, they didn't realize that that added more income to their pool, which bumped their Social Security maybe from zero portion of the benefit taxable to 50% or from 50 to 85%. So we see it every year where people will take money from an IRA. They'll come in and ask, if they could get some help understanding how this works. What happens is that's considered income. As you receive more income, your Social Security could be taxed at a different bracket.
Yeah, Dean, and this one's very surprising for a lot of people. Quite a few people don't know that your Social Security benefits could potentially be taxable in retirement. Now, that all depends on your other combined income. So oftentimes what we see is they take your Social Security benefit, but in addition to that, if you have income coming in in the form of a pension or in the form of withdrawals from your IRA account that's fully taxable, that can factor in. The other big thing that we see quite often is people come in and they have an advisor that sold off a mutual fund or a stock position in a non-retirement account that generated a large capital gain. And little do they know that capital gain right there, simply by selling off stock, they didn't take the money, they sold it off to go into a different stock, so that money never hit their hands. But yet it's still a taxable event, and that actually bumped them up. So instead of paying 0% taxes on their Social Security then became 85% taxable. So any little thing in your financial situation within your investments in your portfolios, your withdrawals, can affect if your Social Security benefits are taxable or not. So you want to make sure that you definitely pay attention to that. Your benefits can be taxable up to 50% or even 85% right now. And again, what we talked about earlier is possibly in the future they might make that 100% taxable. But keep in mind, your Social Security benefits can be taxable based on your other income.
Okay. Here's another myth that we hear, and that is, I can make this decision on my own. Yes, you can. You can make your Social Security filing decision on your own, but why would you want to? Most people talk to a financial advisor when it comes to their investments. While you're working and you have a 401k, you typically have an administrator that gives you an advisor. You can read information all the time about investments. But when it comes to your Social Security, why would you want to take something that could be 1/4, 1/4, 1/2 of your retirement income and not get some information and talk to somebody who knows how the Social Security system works? Talk to a financial advisor. Financial advisors are there. They're very familiar with the Social Security filing. Also, go to the Social Security Administration website. They have a wonderful website with some great tools that will help you and make your decision when to file Social Security. Now remember, Social Security is not an investment, but what you do is you have to look at it from a standpoint of if you get a 6% rate of return by deferring your Social Security from age 62 each year up until your full retirement age, or at 8% growth per year if you defer it after your full retirement age up until 70, you have to look at that because that's a decision that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. So Tyler, anything else on getting an informed decision from somebody other than your own?
No,
self?
Dean, I think you covered that pretty well. There are two things that I want to mention quickly before we close today's show. A couple myths here is that once you claim Social Security, you can't change it. You do actually have a 1-year window to change your selection and redo it. You do have to reimburse your benefits you receive, but you can change within one window, within 1 year. And lastly, people think that their benefit record is always accurate. Typically, it's not. Social Security Administration relies on information provided by your employer. So you do want to check your Social Security statements, get an online login, check that, make sure that that's accurate moving forward.
Okay, folks, that's all the time we have this week. See you later and hope you'll join us again next week.
We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them at Secure Retirement Solutions on Allied Street in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.